see here. All right, let's see. All right. I'm going to do this without my book because I don't need it anymore. But this is going to be how I initially broke through the secrets in the book There's Treasure Inside by JonCollins-black. I'm just going to, it'd take a lot longer for me to read you through how I eventually came to these realities because, I spent, hell, I've been studying this since November, and it was late in February before I actually started going out in the field and like trying to actually do anything about it because I had already ran everywhere back in October and stuff that you can think of initially, just after having seen several of the videos and a bunch of the interviews online and watched a bunch of YouTube stuff back in like September or something. And the North Carolina native thing stuck to me. Being from Iredell County, that's Statesville. That's just a few miles down the road from Wilkesboro. I've lived in Wilkesboro. I've lived in the foothills around here for a long time. I've lived all over, but North Carolina would be my home. We've been here for a couple decades now. Myself off and on, but my folks and my family, they've been up here for quite a while. And so anyways, that right there put it close to home. And I've heard some of the interviews where he spoke about camping and being outside and being into fishing and growing up in an outdoorsy kind of family. And he also spoke like his father was a missionary Baptist church minister. And so they would tour around, I'm sure, and do like, visitation style. But like the basketball thing with the churches up here in Boone, North Carolina is I'd say still alive and well. But I just have friends whose families were deep into that kind of thing. And, it was a day in, day out thing. Like high school, church, college, all that stuff was basketball. But anyways, so I also heard him mention that he would go up to grandfather's every now and then with his father and to go because his father liked to play golf. And I heard him mention, what else was it? Once I heard him mention Blowing Rock. Long time ago in one of the interviews. And so just offhandedly mentioning places like that puts it square on my shoulders and like within my geographical location to as a possibility. So I started at Grandfather Mountain and Blowing Rock, and that's where I stayed. And once I got my copy of the book, which was like in February, I had already studied up on it and had like 10 different places that I thought I should go. And I ran around in circles and never could quite pin down anything because the whole time I was looking for one or two boxes, one of two boxes, I thought. And I had like 5-6 locations that I had zeroed in on over the couple months of doing the homework and stuff. And so after reading the book a few times, and I was headed out to a couple of the places, and I'd already been up to Beach Mountain a couple times. I'd already figured out the theme to the boxes and placed everything on the Land of Oz. The boxes are themed after the Wizard of Oz. Hate to break it to you guys, but the Forrest Fenn box is actually the Tin Woodsman. And something else that I discovered that's just going to blow you guys away, and it's probably going to make a whole bunch of y'all either pissed off or at least disregard me, is I discovered that the reason I had been running around in circles for a long time and had been so many places but hadn't been successful. I'd been to Twisted Falls and Hound Ears. I'd been on both ends of Tanawaha without even thinking about at the end of it yet, just everywhere except for where I was supposed to be. But my big breakthrough was discovering how things apply to the book. And the main thing was in the postscript where he spoke, and he was very specific in the postscript and acknowledgments at the end. He said, for these 3 chapters, there will be no subversive text, no double meaning, no deception, no misleading tactics, no code, no ciphers, no secret meanings. No double talk and no subtext or something like, so anyways, because he was into the escape rooms and whatnot, and he was into the murder mystery dinners and Clue and all that, and spoke about doing that once a week or once a month for the weekend over at his house nowadays with his family's friends and stuff out where he lives and all that kind of stuff. And so that finally dawned on me what that meant. And that meant that the entire book previous to the postscript was open to conjecture and was quite possibly misleading, including the how to read this book, including the pretext. And I'm going to put it to you like this. He said often that the titles to the chapters themselves are even clues, most likely. And so I would say these titles off the top of my head to maybe give you conjecture on how I came to this realization myself. And the realization was that the reason I had been running around in circles looking for one of two boxes, possibly, and not really locating anything is because I had all those locations. Well, the reality of it was there were more than one box in North Carolina, and more than two, most likely. And there was even the possibility that all of them were in North Carolina. Now, I know that's going to throw a bunch of people off, but if you'll go back and you'll listen to the way he words things and the way that he says things when he's speaking to you about it, when he says he secreted them away in different states in his book for you to detect, okay? Secreted them away in different states in the book. But he said he wanted you, no matter where you lived in the country, in the bottom 48, to at least feel like there was a treasure close enough for you to go after it. Because, I mean, after all, if you didn't, then why would you buy this book, right? He wanted you to feel like you were close enough to one. And you need to try to wrap your heads around, he's selling millions of these books, most likely. And so he can't point directly to where it is he wants you. So the actual context of the book should have been secondary to everybody. It was me. I knew initially that there'd be some huge turn in there that would make it so that only one or two people would ever figure it out in time to go for the gusto. And unfortunately for a lot of you folks out west, this was one of those turns. All of the boxes are actually supposed to have been hidden in North Carolina. There are several illustrations that have that written and hidden in them to confirm that, but way before I figured that out, I figured out that there were at least two and possibly three or even more, but there was definitely more than one, because when he said it doesn't necessarily mean that there is one in North Carolina, the way that the book actually reads after you go through everything, that was basically like him saying it doesn't necessarily mean that all of them aren't in North Carolina either. So just try to wrap your head around that, the fact that he's going to mislead everybody initially, because if not, then everybody would discover where these things are, and then everybody would be successful in uncovering the secrets, and you'd have hundreds of people at the site fighting over who's got rights to these things. So anyway, that's the first big turn. And when I discovered that big turn, I was actually, initially I thought that I had recognized one of these boxes, which was impossible to me because they're one of a kind and they weren't even out yet. This is something that wasn't even happening yet, but still that nagged at me. So back in like September and October, around Helene, right after Helene, actually, we were doing some relief work and going out and donating and delivering some donations and appropriating some things to some needy families and stuff. And we had been all over this county and a couple others. And I had already went all over those counties to try and see if I could lay eyes on this object that I felt like I had seen. I just couldn't get away from that I had seen this thing before. But I had long exhausted that initial feeling. That was months prior to me even buying the book and even reading the book finally. But I had been working on this since September or October, and just watching all the YouTube videos and all the interviews and playing everything back and listening to everybody's discussions and all that kind of stuff. And in February, I think it was the 22nd, I finally got my copy. I sold a coin of mine that's worth a lot of money for just the $50 it cost to get it. And then I sold my keyboard, one of them, out of my studio so that I could afford to take the month off work and really chase this thing down. Because like I said, I had that feeling I'd seen something, and then I had discovered the theme of, and no one else had figured it out. And when I say the theme being Wizard of Oz, it's like, the Pokemon box was supposed to be the Scarecrow. The Appalachian Footpath box was actually supposed to be Judy Garland or Dorothy. The Lion's Share box, of course, is the Cowardly Lion. The Hobnail box is the Tin Woodsman or the Tin Man. And then the Past and Future box, the first box that I was going to uncover or try to, it was actually supposed to be the Wicked Witch of the West, as far as I can tell. But anyways, that was the one that I thought I'd seen. And so, even though that, like I said, that had long been exhausted as a possibility to assist me, and I hadn't even thought about it in that context in months in months past, before I even got my copy of the book. So then I read the book several times, and I'd still ran around in circles. It wasn't until I came to grips with the subtext of the postscript when he said, "These 3 chapters." And basically that was him saying that the rest of the book was subject to all that deceit and misleading and subtext and double talk and subterfuge and, all that kind of stuff. And so I had to take it like that. And then I thought that would be a huge turn, And so back to the chapter names, a thing that kind of zeroed me in on it was, blaze your own path, sing your own song, make it make sense. Make it make sense. Him growing up not very wealthy and without a lot of money, they didn't travel a whole lot. He spoke about that in the book, even when he made up the story about going to Texas, which really that Houston thing is a county. It's over, past where this house is that's involved with his family. But anyways, that was a made up story, and you could tell. But all of the words around everything and make it make sense. To me, it didn't make sense that he would spread these across the country, because I didn't think, other than the Rocky Mountains thing he did with Forrest Fenn, I wasn't under the impression that he had spent a whole lot of time hiking around the country. I did, however, come to the fact and, come up with he had grown up around Grandfather Mountain and Blowing Rock, and had been out here, on the Greenway and all that kind of stuff. And this was before I discovered the mountain bike trail names tying him in. But I was already up on the Land of Oz before I even started discovering locations. Like the Land of Oz up on Beach Mountain is actually in close proximity to one of the boxes, but we'll get to that. But anyways, I was just a few minutes from the Lynn Cove Viaduct, which had long been one of my suspicions of a placement for this box. And the reason was because the feather on the map, okay, that is the Tanawaha Trail feather. And that's an 11.6 mile trail or something that starts at the Lynn Cove Viaduct, if you will, or ends there, however you want to look at it. And then the other end of it is in Blowing Rock. Okay, well, after the Past and Future box, when I was looking at the map, see, that was my problem. The whole book seemed to be leading me, like, each one of the chapters, including the first half of the book, had so many clues that was leading me to this one spot in North Carolina, but there were like 4 or 5 of them. And so I was running around in circles because I couldn't pinpoint an exact location, because I had not yet wrapped my mind around the fact that all of the boxes were supposed to be in North Carolina. So I was all over the place before I figured it out. But I was on my way to the Lynn Cove Viaduct. And the reason that was a big possibility, other than the Tanawaha thing, was the word high point on the map, and it says highest elevation, highest point when you're going across that bridge. The observation deck reference in Star Trek, and the fact that behind Captain Kirk in the photograph, it looked very much like those rock retaining nets with the spikes that hold the rocks from falling in the road. And it also did not look like he was standing on the Star Trek Enterprise. Instead, it looked like he was standing under a bridge. Take that and couple it with the Oasis reference. I didn't read the book Ready Player One, but I did see the movie, and he said that he related that solve to this. And in there, you had to go back to his past to find out where it was you needed to look. But it turned out that you had to go under a bridge. After you turned around and went back to his past, you had to come back, go under the race. You had to like completely subvert the whole race and go under the bridge, not over it, and then across the thing and past the end to the end of the bridge, but not over it, in order to get to the Easter egg. And the Easter egg being, like I said, the Past and Future box. And I remember, so the highest point coupled with the observation deck, coupled with the Tanawaha Trail feather, those 3 things, plus him talking about getting a new perspective and all the different overlooks and perspective references he made in the book. Well, that happens to be an overlook off the Blue Ridge Parkway. And so all of those things together and the whole running in circles. Well, right before I pulled up there, maybe 3 minutes before there, I shot a real short video, and I even called my sister and I said, I figured it out. The reason that I've been running in circles for all these months is because not one of the boxes is in North Carolina, but two, maybe even all. At least two or three, though. And that's why I had those different locations kind of honed in on, but wasn't really sure because none of them were one place. It was all these places. And that had me all messed up. So I had to make it make sense. And so I'm going over the damn split rail fence, and I said to myself out loud, I'll never forget it. I was like, defy expectations, because that's what no one expects them all to be in one state, and no one expects you to go over the damn split rail fence where it says observation deck. It's not a part of the trail. And so as I went over that fence, I said to myself out loud with the book, I said, defy expectations. And that's what I was doing. I walked around a couple corners there and climbed over a rock and kept going up to the back. And I got to the word her painted on a pillar. I took pictures of it and posted it. That word, seeing that, brought a wave of recollection back to me, and I could remember I had been here before, and I had seen that painting before. And when I did, that box was sitting at the foot of it, and I said, are you talking about right her? Because at that time, there were some fellas that I know and have known for 25 years. I haven't ever been close friends with them because they're like younger than my younger brother, and he's like 6 years younger than me, and they're like 6 years younger than him. It was like the younger brother of one of my younger brother's roommates, and they all lived in the same college house and partied for a while. So I've known these guys a long time, but we're not close friends or nothing. And they just so happened to be there one day when we missed our exit coming back from Asheville and ended up on the Parkway trying to get back to Boone. And so we stopped off there because I had heard there was a trail that went up under there, and I wanted to check it out. And my buddy wanted to smoke, and I don't allow smoking in my car. So we decided we'd just drop by there for a minute, and he could blaze. Well, when we dropped by there, that's when we bumped into these people. And there was another guy there in a blue sports car convertible, and he was talking to them when we got there. And they were kind of back and forth in between him and us, and we were just kind of showing up, going to jump out, walk down this trail for a few minutes. He was going to smoke, and then we were going to roll out. We weren't going to go far, and it was later in the day too. But I can't even remember when this was. I'm pretty sure my father was still alive, though, so that means it would have had to have been 21 or prior, 2021 or prior. And we were only there 5-10 minutes. Anyways, those guys, in retrospect, as I'm standing there seeing this word her, it all started coming back to me. I couldn't pinpoint exactly who it was, but I remembered they were looking for something. I even remembered why. And it was because they said that this guy who was a Bitcoin multimillionaire had been talking about treasure and was all day or something with them. And now he was acting sketchy and trying to get off to himself. And as soon as he left, they were down in there looking for something. And all I did was point at it. Like, you talking about right her? And those boys snatched it up and ran out of there. That was the day that he left it there. And I don't know when that was, but I'm sure that was the day it was him. And I'm sure that was the day he left it there. And the people that took it were there talking to him that day. So I don't know. And that's why they were suspicious that there was something there when I was there, was because he had been talking about treasure or something. And I mean, they were, like I said, they were snooping around, looking around for stuff moments after that guy left. Because when we showed up there, he was up there talking, and then we were talking to them for a few minutes, just for a minute. And he went down there and came back, and he got in his car and left after he said goodbye to them. And right after that, they were down in there. They walked down there with us, and we walked down just to smoke, and we were leaving, and they were looking around. And the funny shit is they were about to leave everything alone. They hadn't seen nothing on the trail. And I was like, well, if he was hiding something, I doubt very much he'd hide it on the trail. You'd have to go over the fence and look behind some shit and look under some stuff. I mean, I've never, honestly myself, I've never looked for treasure or been on anything, and it wasn't none of my business. I was just making a suggestion, but I did ended up pointing it out for them, and then they took it right then, And that was like 5 years ago, though. 6 years. It's a long time ago. I couldn't remember if I had to. But anyways, that was confirmation that I had come to the right place because I saw that word. And so here I am showing up on the scene, getting ready to win the win of a lifetime. And then I see the word and it's like, yes, I'm right. This is it. This is where I saw it. And then I'm like, oh shit. And I had this revelation, like, they took it, so I immediately reached out to John. I tried to make an emergency video like, hey, what are we going to do? Because like I said, I don't know those guys that great, but I can pinpoint a couple of their names. And if I needed to, this is a small town, we could track them down and get him his property back. And the truth is, it belongs to me now. So I'd appreciate some fucking help. I didn't realize anything, And so anyway, after a few days of me bombing the mailboxes about that, because I'm freaking out, because like I said, this is the biggest win of my life kind of feeling, and I haven't won anything except for knowing that the day he put it there, it got taken, and that he was there and he knew those people, and the reason they took it is because they were talking to him, and they, were suspicious of the things he was talking about, it seemed like, but they were definitely there looking around because of him. And I just wanted to get in touch with him. I didn't know what he had planned on doing. I didn't know if he knew this. Surely not, And so anyways, somebody called me saying they were him. And honest to goodness, the whole time we talked on the phone, I never believed it was him, because all they had was questions, and all they needed was that picture. Like, you see the picture, you'd know that was where you put it, because you painted that word, her, which I think stands for highest ever recorded or something, because then it says 23 Brave under it. So that means that most likely the Michael Jordan rookie card that was in the treasure was in that box. And anyways, so I didn't know what to do. I just knew that the biggest, all this work I've done and this fucking running around and spent everything I got, and I don't know. I mean, like very hopeful to win something. And I'm like, and I finally figured it out in the book, and I show up to the scene, and then I see that, and it confirms it to me. I'm right. And it's like, oh, but it's gone, and so like, I don't know. I tried to reach out and see what he had to say about it. And like, this guy called me and pretended he was him. And yeah, I believe it might've been him now, but I would never divulge my methods about how I came up with it, because I didn't know that was him. Again, like, if it was him, he'd know that was it. And he'd want to know about this. But I will say this, during that conversation, I was like, if with your resources and my local know-how, we could track this stuff down. We could find these guys. I doubt that they've sold all of that stuff, because it'd be hard to fence any of it without, stirring the pot or making waves. So they probably stashed it away, and they're because they're damn thieves, and they took it, and it's probably hidden. And the guy on the phone that I didn't believe was him said to me, he said, "It's too late for that now." At the time, I did not register as to how that could even be pertaining to the situation, but whoever it was continued to deny me the validity of my claim, saying that wasn't the right place, and wish me luck, because I said, well, if this one's empty, that's fine. I'll go to the next one. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to solve the next one. And he said, you're going to solve another one of these. I remember the guy, too, on the phone, he said, you mean to tell me that you seen this box and you even helped find it, but you didn't take it? And I was like, well, no. And he's like, so you don't have it? And I was like, of course not. And he said, well, why not? And I said, because I didn't take it. And he said, why not? And I said, because I don't take shit that don't belong to me. I mean, why has that got to blow everybody's fucking mind? Besides the fact that, other people were already down there looking for it like it was their fucking job. It had nothing to do with me. We were there to smoke a cigarette, and that wasn't even for me. That was my buddy. And then we were leaving, and that's what we did. And that's all the impact it ever had on my life. And I only saw it in passing for just a moment. So how the fuck would I know that it was anything? All I know is I grew up in a place where you don't take things that don't belong to you that you're not supposed to fucking touch. Don't touch things that aren't yours. I mean, that's the way I was raised. If you met my parents, they don't play. Get your ass whooped for some shit like that. I stole a candy bar one time when I was real little. My mama made me take it back in the damn store and hand it to the lady. I mean, we don't play that. We don't play none of that. We don't play liars. We don't play snitches. We don't play thieves. We just don't do that. That's not us. Ever. It wouldn't fly. I would not be here right now if that was the kind of person that I had become, because my parents would have ended my life very early. So anyways, here I am with my honest to God, give it all you got story. And I've had this revelation on the scene once I arrived there. So I know that was the right place. But I also knew that it was gone. And then this guy who's pretending to be him, which I can't even tell you for sure if it was, he's denying me my discovery. But the fact is, I'd seen it with my own eyes, even if it was 5 years prior, and just for a second, I saw it. And that's why I had that revelation when I was on the scene. Like, I knew that I was right, and I knew I was right when I was pulling up to the scene about this being one of the scenes, like one of the places it was. And that's because I just had that revelation about the book, about them all being in North Carolina. And this was long before I had read through the book 10 more times to try to fucking figure out where the next one was and figure out, like, cause I was pretty zeroed in on my spots, but like I had like a bunch of spots and only a few boxes there, but it didn't take me 3 weeks after I got that first in, to really get down to brass tacks and implement everything. A big part of the solves is going to be the mountain bike trail names at Emerald Outback on Beach Mountain and also Rocky Knob in Boone. But we'll get to that in the next video. But that's where I stand on the Lynn Cove Viaduct past and future box discovery. Was I couldn't make that discovery and know it until I had come to terms with the fact that more than one of the boxes was in North Carolina, and then also had come up on the scene where that word was painted and had that revelation where I remembered finally where I had seen this thing, even though it had been 4 or 5 years ago and just in passing, I had indeed seen it, and this was the place. So since then, I've been trying to get some sort of confirmation and get some sort of information on what the hell, I'm supposed to do with that, or what any of us were supposed to do with that, especially after making the discoveries I made later in the book, after the fourth place, after my fourth discovery was met with 0 rewards and not so much as a damn congratulations or a return phone call, in the fifth and final part of the book that I the only thing left to do, so to speak, when I discovered his confession, man, this has been the most emotionally trying and traumatic thing I've ever been through. I've never even had a chance ever at competing for something and winning something like that, much less something so life-changing. My initial cause for going after that first box was to hand it to my mom. I was going to try to save the house, but if you wanted to see, you can see we're packing the house. Everything's getting packed up. And we are getting ready to move everything out. And I'm not sure where Mom's going to go, but I should have been here for these months because life-changing winds haven't done anything for me. And I've been to all the places. And so I've tried to reach out to a bunch of people, and I've tried to inform some people, very unsuccessfully, which I understand. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I hope that everybody can remember when this all does come down that I personally didn't have anything to do with this, and I didn't hide anything from you, and I would never have done this. If I had discovered that these things were missing before I put them out, or before I put the book out, I would have scrapped the project and came clean. But for some reason, this guy chose not to, and so that's why I'm here now, is because I want to know why. I want to know what the deal is. What does he plan on doing? The alternative offer after the 4th chapter was just as impossible to collect. And I never even agreed to that when I bought this book. Nobody in Seattle wanted to win a house in Cullowhee or Cashiers. And then if they traveled all the way out here, like I traveled all the way down there, for me it was a 4-hour drive one way, and then I was stranded and left in the driveway for a bunch of hours. But we'll get to that later. But anyways, it's I've never been so insulted, to be honest with you. Of course, I've never put myself out there faith-wise and done this. I've never been much of a gambler. Never really had a chance to compete for anything. And I've been so grateful this whole time. And even in the face of failure each of those times, I just knew there was some sort of grand design and that it wouldn't go to the wayside, and that he had plans other than this to take care of whoever it was that won. And it just so happened to be me. And so I'd like to see what those are. So that's the first video, and that's Past and Future box. And there's plenty of other things that led me to that box. I can break it down for you, but the Tanawaha Trail Feather, the highest point and the high point mark on the map, and the overdeck, or the observation deck references, and then the fact that that's called the observation deck, and you can see it in the pictures and stuff that says that. And then also the whole solve being relative to the Oasis solve on Ready Player One, and I never read that book, but I'd seen the film, and I remembered that you had to go under the bridge to the other side. So I went back in his past, and I saw that he was in Grandfather Mountain, and then I did the whole observation deck and perspective thing, and take a step back and take a broader view, and then I followed the directions of the chapter heads. Blaze your own path, defy expectations, all that stuff. The don't give up one was the one that I kept pegging, and it's been the one that's caused me the most heartache so far. But this is just an effort to try to reach out and maybe reach some folks, and hopefully reach John and get a response as to what he plans on doing, because I've discovered each of these locations to be missing their touted treasures, and then I've also discovered a part in the book hidden where he admits to having knowledge of this before he released the book. So I went out looking for treasure and life-changing wins. I spent months and thousands of dollars and hiked dozens of miles, and only to discover nothing so far. So I won't keep you any longer, but that's the first one. All right. I guess I'll do the Appalachian Footpath box here in a couple days. I'm going to post both of these videos and let them fly. My phone's going to be shut off tonight. I'll get it back on Thursday. When I get paid. I've been out of work because of this, and I've abandoned all my responsibilities because I had so much faith in this situation. Even after the first one was empty, I was like, no way the next one will be, and even if it is, I'm the closest to them, so no way they all will be. And that turns out that I was wrong. I just hope I wasn't wrong to have faith in this guy that wrote this book, because that's what I've not given up on this whole time. And I don't know. I don't know. We'll see, though. All right.